Welcome to Rebuilding the Beast. On this show, we are going to have so many transformative stories, evolution stories, comeback stories. I hope you can take the tips from all these stories and apply it to your life as well. This podcast is about using your life as a masterclass. You'll tell the story of what you overcame, and that itself will be someone else's survival guide. Welcome to Rebuilding the Beast. Corey Phelps, welcome to the Rebuilding the Beast podcast. I appreciate you so much for showing up. How you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. How are you doing?
I'm very well. I'm good. I'm in the middle of moving, but I couldn't miss an opportunity to talk to you and talk about, your journey, weight loss. You lost 300 pounds, bro. That's insane.
About 350 now? It's
Okay.
yeah, it's insane to even now like I'm wearing I know people probably can't see it, but I'm wearing the hoodie that I was actually in the show and it's like a parachute on me, but it's my comfort hoodie. It's like three sizes too big, but I'm absolutely in love with it. So yeah, 350 pounds.
I wonder if comfort hoodie means like, yo, this is like my trophy almost. Like I did this. It's a reminder of what you did.
In a way, at the same time, it helps me stay in disguise in public because I'm sure for someone like you who's been in the NBA, when it comes to me, the less I can get recognized in public, the better.
Oh, you get a lot of recognition now.
Unfortunately, it's weird because I don't know how to
Unfortunately.
live like that, and I really didn't think much was gonna happen because I thought it was coming out on Discovery. Then they put it on TLC, and that's when people started recognizing me at some of the most awkward and opportune times. Like I had a job interview and someone walked up, and I was like, okay, this is where it's at now.
I was thinking about that. Is it hard to have been on a TV show to share your story on a national stage?
I think it was harder to make sure my story was told the way I wanted it to be told. But I think with me, I went on there wanting to share my story, wanting to be, because, we look at weight loss shows all the time, and so often it's this negative representation of people. It's that you
Mhm.
don't have any worth until you lose weight. And if you don't lose weight, then you continue this unhealthy cycle. And again, no worth, no value. And I wanted to change the way that that was looked at completely. And so, yes, there weren't as many hard times in my episode as others, but I don't think that my weight loss story has to be all doom and gloom. And I'd rather focus on the positive. So that's what I was trying to do with
I
the
love
TV
it.
show.
I love it. Okay. All right, let's go back and let's start from the beginning because we're gonna get into the weight loss part of it. But how was growing up? Was weight an issue from when you were young, or did that develop later on?
So my relationship with food has always been a struggle. I'd say kindergarten, I was a
Mm.
chunky monkey. And I don't even remember when I was a kid and like skinny mini me. So yeah, no, I've been overweight my entire life, and my relationship with food has always been I live in a house full of people who can eat 40,000 calories a day, not gain a pound. Meanwhile, if I sniff an Oreo, 10 pounds put on, easy peasy. So yeah, no, my weight loss journey, I'd say my first diet was first grade,
Wow.
and nothing just ever stuck until now.
You experienced a lot of fat shaming, you've said, in your life. What is the most hurtful prejudice that you were faced with because you were heavier?
I think the most hurtful prejudice I have experienced is feeling like I'm not worthy of love and acceptance from not only strangers, um, but romantic partners, friends. It's almost as though I've been conditioned to think that just because I'm plus size, that I can't be accepted or that I'm less than. Like I have an amazing partner now, and I'm going to meet his parents, and the only thought that goes through my head is when they meet me, I'm still a chunky monkey, but are they going to look at me and be like, "You should date someone skinnier"? That's the thought that goes through my head. So that's kind of fat shaming for me, and what's hurt the most is just the I think I'm awesome. I think I'm fucking fantastic. Sorry about the cursey words. I think I'm fantastic, but when it comes to interacting with other people, I just live in this world where I think everyone's gonna hate me or look down on me because of my weight.
How do you battle those thoughts? Because even it's one thing for the world to say one thing, or sometimes we also are assuming what people are going to say, right? People say some things and then you also take your own thing and you add it into that. So, how do you battle that in your head? How do you then say, "Yeah, I am awesome. I am freaking awesome. I can't wait for their parents, for his parents to meet me."
A lot of it's self-talk and realizing that those thoughts aren't real, they're not valid, it hasn't happened. How can I predict it? I'm not a fortune teller. If I was, I would have won the lottery by now, but realizing that those thoughts hold no credence. And so when it comes to those situations and thinking about how other people will view me, I've truly had to make small steps to going back out in public, even exercising. I started out exercising at like 5 a.m. in the morning where no one would see me, but at the same time, my sleep schedule went out the window. And so I was getting healthy in one way, but losing health in another way. Um, and now I can go walk in the evenings. There's tons of people around and it doesn't bother me. But I think it's just going out there trying it and realizing that no one really cares. And those who are going to walk up to you and say words have their own inner struggles that they're dealing with. And they're just projecting all their inner fat phobia onto you.
Tell me about how you go from the kid who is a chunky monkey, and when you're young, we're all kind of chunky in our different ways, right? I was definitely one of the chunky kids, and actually didn't lose weight until I started playing sports and I started playing basketball, and that came, when I was probably 16. How did you get to 600 pounds, and then at 600 pounds, how did you feel?
Yeah, I think early on in childhood, I just developed this unhealthy relationship with food. And instead of my family working on it and actually talking through it, and no bad words to my parents, but what I kind of got was the fat shaming. Why are you eating that? You should just eat a salad, drink water. And that's not realistic. That's not sustainable. But you start hiding food, you start binge eating, and it turns into this whole vicious cycle. Um, and then eventually you just start surviving and stop caring about you. And that's why I always say if you do well and if you, sorry, that's why I always say if you care about yourself and really invest in yourself and you're taking care of you, that's where my weight loss began. And I
Mm.
also, going through all this weight loss journey as a kid, I was so focused on perfection. I'd have 2 great weeks and then one bad day and be like, oh, it's all to hell. And
Wow.
I think for me, the key component when it came to the switch between as a kid chunky to an adult overweight, 664 pounds, to losing all the weight was flipping the switch of this isn't perfection. I can be human. I can have a bad day. And one bad day isn't going to outweigh a month of good. One bad week isn't going to outweigh the year of phenomenal effort I put in.
Tell me about the perfectionist mindset and where that comes from, especially when you are on a journey, because there's no such thing as perfection, right? Like, I don't know if there's any perfect person out there. Maybe y'all can let me know. But I feel like we are all on this journey, and there's people out there. And you talked about your family, they would eat whatever on their own journeys and they would stay skinny. So, what was it about your own journey that you felt like you had to be perfect?
So a lot of that comes back to my relationship with my mom. My mom, single mom, really worked hard. Like I'd say, embodies work ethic to the infinite degree. But at the same time, I dealt with a lot of abuse as a kid, and perfectionism to me, I learned later in life, was a trauma response. Where if I'm perfect, I don't get abused. If I can just be as perfect as possible,
Mm.
then how would anyone be able to abuse me? And so that's kind of how I adopted that perfectionist mindset is with weight loss, it had to be all or nothing. And with everything else in my life, it had to be all or nothing. If it wasn't perfect, then it had no worth to it. And I think I've slowly had to start realizing that it's difficult, but realizing that it's the imperfect that's perfect, if that makes sense. that the mistakes and the little things and the trip ups are your learning experiences, your growth potential, and that mindset in general has changed it. But yeah, perfection goes a lot to my relationship with my mom.
For the people out there who are also dealing with perfectionism, I know I'm one of them, right? There's a bunch of different ways that that shows up in my life. How did you get that perspective? What gave you the perspective to realize that you are human? That's part of being imperfect.
A lot of therapy, an overwhelming amount of therapy to get there, and just unlearning all those negative behaviors that you carry on from childhood, um, and really understanding one, what's my problem, like what, not my problem, but what impairs me to live the life I want. And one of those was that perfectionist mindset because I will work so hard at something to the point, one, it's late, or two, it's I lose sleep. I completely give myself to the project and none of myself to me.
Mm,
And realizing that if I just do it, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be done. And a lot of times I surprise myself with my level of done is sometimes other people's level of perfect. And so even just toning it down for me allows me to have peace of mind while at the same time doing what I need to do. And that goes with weight loss. Again, I think when you have a national audience, or you know you're about to have a national audience of people watching you lose weight on TV, you really want to hold on to that perfectionist mindset of I have to be perfect, perfect, perfect. But throughout the entire thing, I was like, if I'd fall off the wagon, I'd be like, no, no, we got to get back up and keep going
there
because
you go.
we're gonna have a TV show premiere and we want that premiere to look fire.
That's awesome. I have a there's another facet to your life. You know, you also came out as gay in high school. Unfortunately, that made bullying worse. How did you keep your head up high and become the bad bitch? That's what you call yourself that you are now.
No, that's honest to God. My everyone laughs because I call myself a bad bitch. And it's the yeah. I had dealt with overweight jokes my entire life. Like it got to a point where I was like, if they're not creative and they're not funny, you're wasting my time. Like make me laugh when you say the joke because it's just old at this point.
Mm.
And so when I came out as gay, one, I grew up in the South. I had
Whoa, in Georgia, right?
yeah, Georgia, South, Southern Baptist. A lot of my friends were from my church, and I knew coming out to like I knew from third grade that I was gay. Like there was a kid in third grade who I wanted to be best friends with, but like I was gonna be his only best friend, and I didn't know that that's what that was at the time. But now looking back at it, I was like, no, no, I understand why I wanted to be his best friend.
Mm.
It's because at that point in time, my body was changing. I came out of the closet in fourth grade. But going forward, sorry, let me get my thoughts together. My brain's dead. So ask the question again and I'll restart.
Coming out as gay in high school makes bullying worse, but how did you keep your head up high through all that to
Yeah, so
become the bad bitch?
the bad bitch, I like that. No, so high school, like I said, I had always grown up with people calling me fat, and being made fun of wasn't something I wasn't used to. I think the struggle for me was overcoming the stigma with Southern Baptism, where if you're gay, you're going to hell, this, that, and the other. And I came out expecting to lose everyone, and I lost a ton of people, but I gained so many more. But even then, the weight that was lifted off my shoulders, like it's insane. Granted, there's a whole new set of problems that come with that. But coming out in high school, once I came out, um, I almost created this. I don't want to say I was ready to take on the church, but that's where I started to become an activist, advocacy, making sure that other people knew that one, they could come out, and two, making sure the school was a safe place. I
Hmm.
became president of the GSA. I was a national Jumpstart student leader for GLSEN. I don't think many people know that. GLSEN's the Gay Lesbian Straight Education Network, and that was all at like 16, 17.
Wow.
I was doing interviews on CNN with newspapers and everything to advocate for safe schools for LGBT youth. But when I came out, I think I got a lot of hate, and my response to that was to make sure that no one after me was ever going to receive that same hate.
Tell me about that because this podcast is about the rebuilding process. And so tell me about the hate. Tell me about what you were experiencing at the time and how hard it was.
Um, for me, like I would have kids in high school. I remember specifically there were two kids, and they were joking looking back at it now, but to me at that time it wasn't a joke where they had threatened to kill me. And in high school, you hear that, and especially as someone who's freshly came out as gay, it's really terrifying. And the school's response to that was to do nothing, and I felt powerless. I would go up to the principal's office every day, sit outside of his office, and beg him to do something about this. I think they gave the kids in school suspension for a day and told their parents that they offended someone. But for me, that wasn't good enough. That's when I became involved with the GSA. Um, I was rallying up for the Day of Silence, trying to get as many people active in our school when it comes to LGBT as possible. And I don't know, I've just always been the person who, when I see an issue, I'm a tackle it head on, not tiptoe around it or avoid it. I'm ready to break eggshells. Because again, you only get one life. What's the point of caring what other people think about you if you know who you are?
Are you also getting support from your family at home?
Oh God, no. So I think one, it's the funniest part of it all is that my mom, when I came out, she told the whole family I was blindsided. And for me, I'm like, let's be clear. Every Saturday or whenever we would go to karaoke, I was doing Britney Spears, Oops, I Did It Again with full choreography on stage. How she was blindsided. I cried in the amount of years in a row that I
Wow.
wanted to be the pink Power Ranger, and she bought me like the blue Power Ranger, the white Power Ranger, and I was like, no, no, pink. And I played with Barbies as a kid. She said she was blindsided. But I
Can you
think
do the
my
accent one more time? That's why I was smiling.
oh yeah, she said I was just blindsided. That's honest to goodness, a good impression of my mom, but super country, but also that the Southern Baptist,
Mm.
where I remember I was in the car with my brother and he asked my mom, "What would you do if one of your kids came out as gay?" And she said they wouldn't be my kid anymore.
Oh wow.
And to me, I hadn't come out as gay at that time, but that sat with me for so long, and
That's
I was so
pressure, man.
scared to. The rest of my family was pretty okay with it, but for me, yeah, it was a lot of pressure.
I mean, you're already facing like you already are feeling like I can't be myself around my family. That's got to be a lot to deal with at the time.
Yeah, and the way in which I dealt with it was I went inward. I just slowly started pulling myself back from everyone, and became really introverted, which is crazy to think because if you know me and you get to know me, I'm extremely extroverted once I know people who I'm around, once I know that they care for me. But if you met me on the street, you'd not recognize the person I was because I'm so shy and introverted. But that's where it all comes from is I didn't have anyone there to necessarily take care of me to cultivate that self-confidence in me. And it's
Mhm.
one of those things I went inward and I had to cultivate it myself. That's not what everyone does or everyone's experience. I was just really lucky that when I started socially distancing myself, which is not healthy, let me reiterate that, that's where I started to be like, okay, I'm a bad bitch. Even if no one gets it, I get it.
Was that also adding to like? Are you also staying home and eating and being by yourself? Is that all compounding on the same issue and adding to the obesity at the time?
Absolutely. And I didn't have, like I said, I didn't have that support at home. So I'm at home I'm eating secretly because if I eat publicly, I'm going to be, even if I eat the same things my brothers are eating, I'm going to be made fun of because I should be eating a salad or drinking water. And it's just, I don't know. As a kid, I didn't understand that. I had no clue. It didn't seem fair to me. And even then, as an adult, I'm like, that's bullshit. Even as an adult, I'm like, that's BS. Sorry, I
It
curse.
is. It's all good. No, tell
Um,
your story the way you want to.
but yeah, as a kid, I just learned to depend on me, and it was difficult. I think the wonderful thing about me though is I had a grandmother growing up who showed me unconditional love, so I knew what unconditional love was, and she loved me like nobody's business. She gave
Wow.
me
Shout out
a
to grandparents.
she gave me enough love to last me a lifetime. And so even though I was going through all of that chaos and hell, I knew that for one person, I was their number one and I was special and I could do anything. And it was that kind of love that set me up for success.
You still face negative comments, for example, on social media about being queer?
Um, Not really. I think yes and no. Like, there's of course people who will always share their opinions. I don't engage with social media. If you look at my profile page, it's like 3 months in between postings. But social media for me, it's just such direct contact with people and all that judgment, something that I learned to not have as a kid. So as an adult, it definitely made me feel well after the show that so many people responded to my story.
Mm.
But at the same time, it's like now all these people are watching me, and there were a lot of people who had opinions. A lot of people who didn't like that I called the Skell Karen. Meanwhile, I'm like I said, I've been bullied my entire life, but I could give a damn. But at the same time, there were other people on that same show as me who probably don't have that same mentality, and so if their shows weren't received as well as mine, they were probably going through a lot more hell than I did. I was lucky in that my show was really positive. I had to fight for it to be positive. Um, but I think a lot of other people received more hate than I did. But for me, I see them and I keep scrolling on because there's 1,000 positive comments for the one negative.
On the show, you were on the show, the TLC show, Too Large, and you were very open and vulnerable. I admired that you really put yourself out there on TV, inspiring others, and really just being honest about your journey. Was it hard to publicly share that you weighed 664 pounds at the time?
Honestly and truly, it was. I knew I hadn't been able to. It's one of those things where I don't hop on the scale, then my that number doesn't
Does
exist.
exist?
And so it was just one of those things where I was able to put it down, deny it, deny it, deny it. And I knew about the show and the visits with Dr. Proctor long before they ever happened, and so I was like counting down that day. And then when the day actually came, I think I
How
was
did it
just
come?
so I went sorry. I got a message from a producer, Christy Dixon. Well, I didn't get a message. I got about 20 phone calls the morning after I submitted my application. And she was like, "Where do you live?" And I was like, "Georgia." She was like, "You didn't put that in your application." I was like, "Okay." And she was like, "We're gonna get you in. We're gonna do your casting and everything." She was amazing. She's still one of the producers that quit the show for to get back on because she was so positive and my safety blanket with the show. But I got in the show. I had just got overcame homelessness, moved into my own apartment. My aunt Kristen told me about it, and I was literally laying in my bed on my phone, submitted my application, and I didn't think anything in the world would ever come of it. I was just, I was like, I don't even have a good story um, to tell, which is insane looking back now because I think I have a great story. But at that time, I had just overcome homelessness. I didn't see myself at the end of the tunnel. I saw myself in the middle of the storm. And even though I still was, it was one of those situations where it came about at a perfect time because I had just found a little bit of stability. It helped add to my stability in some ways, but also took away from it in others. Um, but once I got that acceptance and told that I was going to be on the show, I was really excited and positive to the fact that one, I was going to get weight loss surgery, And two, I had overcome homelessness, abuse as a child, being made fun of for my weight because I was gay. And I've overcome all those things, but my weight was like the last frontier to me in a way. And so,
You know what? I want to say this because for me, I can hear it, and even in every part of your story, the overcoming part. This story is about rebuilding. It's about people who are in the middle of the storm because we are all in the middle of the storm. Nobody has gotten to a place in their life where they're like, okay, well, I'm good now. There's no problems anymore. We are all rebuilding through something. So for you to have in that moment applied to go on this show and feel like, wait, are you still there? Can you
oh
hear
yeah,
me? Okay.
just taking a sip.
You to have applied to this show, you actually gave yourself a chance. And it's not like you felt like you were in a position you're like, well, there's no more hope. You actually gave yourself a chance. And the reason why you're here today, having lost those 300 pounds, are because you gave yourself a chance at that point. And so what made you decide at that point?
Honestly and truly, when I was in that bed, and I always work towards when I overcame homelessness and I was in my bed, I was already looking at getting back in school. And it was one of those things where know that I'm funny, I know that I'm fun, but I also really wanted to get my weight under control. I was 664 pounds. I had no clue where to even begin again. And it's kind of like if you've gone through weight loss your entire life, at some point it's just like, I've tried it. Well, it's going to be different this time. And so for me, I was like, let me put it out there and just maybe see. I really didn't think I had an amazing story until after I sat with it for a little while, and then I was like,
Mm.
I've overcome a whole hell of a lot. Um, Plus, I'm gay and funny as fuck, so might as well put in that application. And it really turned out. And they were excited. I think mine got approved pretty fast, and there was a gay man at TLC who was all excited for my episode. And I also think being gay and chunky isn't something, in a positive aspect, isn't something that's put on TV a lot. Usually, and there's a lot of hate in the gay community with body size, a lot of fat phobia in the gay community that people aren't necessarily aware of. And so, just to be a beacon of light for a ton of chunky gay boys to be like, you are worth it,
Mm.
helped heal my soul so much because I wish I had that as a kid.
You're the inspiration that you needed, right? And that's for me is that makes you a beast right there. That's exactly what this is about. So what was it, and what would you say to people? Because I think a lot of people look at people who are overweight. I was talking to a friend of mine earlier that says she watches the show. My 600 pound, is it, how do you say the name of the show? The other one?
Yeah, my 600
So
pound life.
my 600 pound life and shows like that, people watch people who are overweight and they say, wait, why are you being so lazy? Just go work out. It's not that hard. Or, whatever it is that people have as connotations. What would you say to people like that who are speaking ignorantly about the life of people who are overweight?
So I think there's this wonderful bias that happens where people forget that someone else's experience can be different from theirs. So they could be battling a health issue, a thousand things, and even if they aren't battling a health issue and it's overeating, it's stemming from somewhere, it's coming from something, and that person hasn't gotten control of it yet. But that doesn't make them, one, any less valuable of a person, and two, any less deserving of love. And so for all the people who say, oh, it's laziness, it's this, that, and the other, I worked my ass off to overcome homelessness. At 664 pounds, I would walk 4 miles till I had holes in my feet in flip flops, trying to find a job so that I could overcome homelessness. And so when people say fat people are lazy, no, no. I worked harder than skinny people because I know that people have that mentality. I make sure at work I run circles around the skinny people because there's this automatic perception that because I'm chunky or fat that I'm lazy. And that's just the exact opposite. I'd say if anything, people who are plus size are the most resilient because even though, just like with me, I had tried weight loss 1,000 times, I still got up to try again,
Mm.
which is what led to my success. And so to all those people, if they even looked at me now, a stranger on the street who hadn't seen the show, they'd look at me and be like, "Oh, he's fat, he's lazy," because I'm still chunky. I still got a lot of weight to lose. Granted, I've lost 350 pounds, but coming from 664, we still got more to go. Thank you.
Yeah. I get you.
Um,
Sometimes you got to give yourself a pat in the back and keep going. But
I'm
yes,
I'm learning how to
congratulations.
do
That's
that.
amazing.
It,
We all
yeah.
are.
So they'd look at me today and be like, "You're lazy, this, that, and the other," and never have a clue that I've lost 350 pounds.
How did you get into the position of being homeless?
So that's actually a wonderful question. So I have bipolar disorder, um, which not a lot of people are familiar of. They think it's this hot and cold, up and down. Um, that Katy Perry song, "You're hot and you're cold, you're yes and you're no."
Mm.
But for I have a lot of gay references. But for me, my bipolar, my dad had bipolar. He experienced mania, which is that kind of you lose touch with reality, kind of what you see in social media. The more extreme version of bipolar disorder. I experienced hypomania, which also I'm pretty sure led to a little bit of the confidence because hypomania, it's kind of fun when you don't know it's happening. It causes a lot of chaos in your life. But at the same time, you feel like you're that bitch and you kind of have this confidence boost that you wouldn't get naturally with anyone else or any other means. So I equate a lot of the love I have for myself towards hypomania in a weird way that may be unhealthy. I'll talk about that with my therapist. But um, I in 2015 I went through a really bad depressive episode, and I had no clue at the time. It snuck up on me like a panther in the middle of the night. Like I had no clue that it was happening until I went from straight A's one semester to completely failing and almost dropping out of college my second semester. And I lost my job. I had to move out of my apartment, and I moved back home with my mom. Um, and I lived with her for about a year. And everything I overcame after homelessness and even the weight loss, when I look at all that, that is grains of sand compared to the mountain that I had to overcome living with my mom. My mom is a narcissist, and when people hear that term, they're automatically turned off. And a lot of people think that I'm talking about someone who's just conceited or self-centered. And yes, while those are narcissistic traits, I'm talking about something deeper, narcissistic personality disorder, where someone we're talking about what's in the DSM-5, like the Diagnostic Manual of Mental Health.
Mm.
And a lot of people don't understand that when I say my mother's a narcissist, I'm referring to the clinical term, not the term that everyone throws around.
Wait,
Um,
teach me, because I don't know what the clinical term means then in that case.
Absolutely. So typically what it means, and I'll use the craved method. It's a method coined by Dr. Romney on YouTube. She's phenomenal. But these people are high conflict. They're always in conflict with someone, no matter what it is. And any perceived sense of peace is a fallacy for their own image. They're very rigid. It's their way or the highway. They don't like changes in their schedule. They're also entitled, so they don't think there should be changes, that everything should be done the way that they want it done.
Mm.
They're very antagonistic, actively hostile, which means that if you break any of their rigid demands, they're going to go out of their way to abuse you or to get upset with you or to use that to manipulate you. They're very vindictive. There's no eye for an eye. They will come at you for everything if you step 1 foot out of line. Um, in the same way that they'll come at you and abuse you and make you feel crazy, they'll also play the victim to others, so much so that other people feel like they have to intervene on their behalf. Meanwhile, it's all lies, this, that, and the other, and they're really entitled and exploitative. Entitled in that they have no boundaries or don't believe that you should. And boundaries in that entitlement can go just beyond I'm entitled to this, or the entitlement that we think of like with physical things or opportunities. It can come down to I'm entitled to know everything about your life, all your thoughts, your emails, go into your space, go through your stuff. And they're very exploitative. They'll use anything they find, anything they can do to gaslight you, to triangulate you into doing what they want you to do. There's also a lot of dysregulation. Can be super calm, quiet in one moment, and bursting insane the next with narcissistic rage, which once you experience it, it's very scary. But the thing with narcissistic personality disorder that no one understands is it's called the secondhand smoke of mental health for a reason. Because people with this disorder, granted, in order for them to be diagnosed, which is why I say my mom's a narcissist versus has narcissistic personality disorder, in order for someone to be diagnosed, it has to impair them. Typically, it doesn't. Typically, these people are super successful. They are really charismatic, really charming, and they do really well. They're often managers, and it's a lot of the times where you get those toxic work environments. But for me and my mom, um, I mean, the gaslighting. My mom, during the year I lived there, she would tell the entire family that I was abusing her, that I was the problem, that all she wanted to do was help me, that I was going through depression. She didn't know how to do it. She's lost all hope. She's hopeless. And meanwhile, I'm locked in my room because she won't stop beating me. Because I can't walk to the bathroom without being hit and harassed. And that's, like I said, when it comes to the homelessness and weight loss, that is sands on the beach to the mountain that was narcissistic abuse.
Mm.
And when you're in it, you have no clue, not a single ounce of understanding as to what's happening because they make you feel so crazy. They will cause so much chaos. And there were so many times I'd be trying to explain to my mom how she's abusing me. And if I said one thing wrong, that would then be the argument instead of the actual issue, which is treat me like a human being. But with a narcissist, that's too much to ask for.
How do you go from there, living with her being abused, to them being homeless?
So there, I lived there for a year, and then she had tried to put in an eviction for me, which is crazy because I had paid rent. There was no reason, there was no notice, and we went to court. I, of course, won. Um,
It's a court.
yeah, and it was this thing where I went to court, and I knew one, she could just come back with another one and me be forced to go, or we could agree and give myself a little bit of time to find somewhere to go. But it was during that time where we went to court where I put out everything I had, and I decided that I would leave on a certain day, and then I packed my stuff up in the middle of the night before that day came and left, and I never looked back. I haven't had contact with my mother in since 2017,
Oh, man.
and unfortunately, I don't plan on ever having that contact with my mother again, just because it's so toxic. And the thing with people with that disorder is they're never going to change, and even if they do get diagnosed with it and they do start working on it, I hate to say, because I'm someone who believes that anyone can change, and that's part of the reason why I stayed in it so long. Um, but it comes down to she probably won't. Um, and it's difficult because, again, I was going through bipolar depression, which I had no clue what that was, what it meant, how to function. I didn't know which way was up, which way was down. I was lucky if I had the motivation to get up and go use the restroom. And so, yeah, go ahead.
So, so even with this story, this there's so much to unpack with that story. I don't even want to get into all of it because, you're living under the same roof with your mom, but then she sends you an eviction notice where you have to go to court with the person that you're living in the same house with. So that's a whole another story in itself. Let's stay on your story, and you talk about, becoming homeless after this. How do you then, because you're dealing with a lot of mental things at this time, you're dealing with depression, you're dealing with bipolar disorder, and you're also dealing with being overweight at the time. So how do you then get through this? What helps you get through it to find your way out of the situation?
So when I was going through all of that, and the other thing, I didn't even know that I was dealing with bipolar depression at the time. If I did, it probably would have. I didn't find out till last year that I had bipolar disorder, and I'd been dealing with it for what, almost 10 years at that time. Um, and so that was a revelation in itself. But when I was in the midst of it, going through it all, there were a lot of days where I didn't know what was happening, but I had something I was working towards, which was to get back in school. And I didn't care how or what I had to do to get there. I mean, staying true to myself and, of course, being authentic and not losing sight of my values. I definitely did everything I had to in order to overcome homelessness, while still being kind and generous to other people. I think one of the wonderful things about the homeless population is that it's such a close-knit community that will do anything for each other. Um,
Mm.
and so my experience with homelessness wasn't as bad as others. I went to homeless shelters. I slept on a friend's couch for months. I slept in hotels. I slept under a bridge. I
Wow.
finally found myself at the Good Neighbor Homeless Shelter. And going through all of that, the few things that kept me going were one, knowing that this wasn't it. This wasn't the end. I remember sitting in my car crying that first night. I didn't know where I was going, what I was going to do. And I just promised myself, like, this is not it. Like, you're going to get past this. And I still look back on it today and I get teary-eyed because it's like if I could just go sit in that car for 5 minutes and tell me at that point, because it was probably the lowest point, and I could just tell me that it's going to be okay. You're not only going to lose weight, you're going to go on TV, you're going to get your degree, and you're going to find the love of your life, and it's all
Wow.
going to happen in the next 2 years. Just get through this part. But it's also one of those things where I feel like I've healed that younger part of me because I've done all those things. And I've gotten to this point where I wish I could go back and tell me. But in all reality, I just found my northern light and I ran to it. No matter what tried to throw me off track, I knew where I wanted to be and what I wanted to be doing. So even if I was taking small steps towards it, I was going to get there.
Wow, I'm so inspired by that. So let's talk about your dramatic. By the way, that's amazing. And I, wow, about your dramatic 300-pound loss, 300-pound weight loss. Congratulations, huge success. Did you have a trigger moment that where you felt like you just really have to change your life around now?
Yeah, so it was, I would go to the grocery store, and it was after I had applied for the show. But I mean, I had been dealing with it for months before. But there was a period where I went to the grocery store, Walmart, and I got from the parking lot. Granted, I was dropped off near the front door, and I got a shopping cart and maybe got to that first row, next to the produce aisle when you first walk in, like that first actual row of stuff. And my back was killing me, my feet were killing me. I couldn't walk, and I was like, I have to go. And, one of the things that scared me was if I became homeless again, because even though I had stability, I was a strong wind away from becoming homeless again. Um, because stability takes time. And I was scared that if I became homeless again, would I be able to walk as far as I had to find a job? Would I be able to do what I needed to? My mobility was pretty much gone at that point, and losing that was the scariest part. And so that's a big part of weight loss, and I think why I was so successful is because I wasn't focused on looking good. I look good then, I look good now. But it was getting that mobility back and getting my life back.
So you go on the show and they tell you, hey, you have to lose 50 pounds to be eligible for the bariatric surgery, weight loss surgery. How did that feel? What you think about it at the time? Because that's always people talk about taking small steps, but they tell you 50 pounds. Is that a lot to you at this point?
Well, I'm just like anyone who's plus size. I know I can lose weight. That's not a problem. It's the sustained weight loss. So when Dr. Proctor actually said, "Do you want to lose 50 pounds?" Or "I want you to lose 50 pounds before," my first response to him was, okay, and what happens if I double it? Like that was my I knew I could lose the 50 pounds. That wasn't a problem to me. They wanted me to act like, "Oh, how am I going to do it?" No, no. I know I can do that. That's not a problem. Um like let's get through this. Um but for me, that 50 pounds, I'm going to lose the weight. I'm going to get the surgery. But again, surgery is just a tool. People always say, "I lost weight, but I didn't have surgery." Some disqualifier for those of us who did have surgery. It
Mm.
literally is just a tool. It doesn't do the work for you. And the reason so many people get weight loss surgery and gain the weight back is because they expect that to do all the work for them, and that's not the case. So for me, what was the question again? Sorry.
The moment that you knew, or actually, really, the question was about when he tells you to lose weight.
Oh yeah. So, and just to sum it up, like he told me to lose 50 pounds, and I was like,
Mhm.
let's double it. Because again, to me, I've overcome homelessness. I've everything I've overcome in my life, 50 pounds was nothing. And I knew that I had to get, that's what I was saying. I had to get ready to lose the weight before instead of after, um, and just get in the process. So for me, it was kind of a challenge. And I've always been the person, like I said, I'm not afraid to break eggshells and do whatever it takes to get it done.
Listening to your YouTube video about weight loss tips, and one of the first things you say is, focus on the food, not on the exercise. Is that how you said it?
Yeah.
I'm trying to make sure I say it the right way you said it. Being able to stick to a new lifestyle and make that mental change is not easy. Like, give me some more tips and kind of tell me all the things that you have learned about being that healthier person and being able to stick to this new routine.
I think the biggest thing is that so many people hear the word healthy and they have that same mentality that I had in kindergarten, which is drink water, eat salads, and starve yourself, and that's not sustainable. For me, weight loss came down to the kitchen. I lost 100 pounds before surgery, never exercised an ounce. Didn't
Really?
didn't ex I mean, I walked I think one time for the TV show. They had us or I did an exercise session with Bobby. That was it. Um, but I didn't exercise before. I lost the first 100 pounds just by working in the kitchen, and making sure that I was eating things that one were low calorie, high protein, but also filling. I could eat, and I would do bulk eating. I don't know if you're familiar with that. I didn't know it was even a term until recently. But where I would eat a large bulk but low calorie foods, a bunch of grilled chicken. So if I wanted to binge eat, I'd just binge eat grilled chicken or Caesar salad, things that I enjoy that aren't going to do as much damage as if I binge a box of Oreos. Um,
What was it like? Okay, sorry. Go ahead. Finish.
but yeah, I'd say my other biggest tip is it doesn't, it's not about progress. Again, it's not about perfection, it's about progress. And I think the sooner people stop with that idea of I had a bad day, therefore I should just quit, give up, and I'll try again next week. Like, you had a bad day, get up tomorrow and keep trying.
Wow, that's beautiful. Tell me about surgery, bariatric surgery. This and this is a there's so many different misconceptions about this as well, right? People say it's a last resort. People say it's the easy way out. What did you find that to be for you?
Me, surgery, and again, I got the vertical sleeve gastrectomy. So there's some surgeries that change the actual anatomy of your stomach, intestines, and the way your body absorbs food. Mine was just restriction. The VSG is strictly restriction. So they cut down the size of your stomach, and that's it. They don't chop or do anything else. So with mine, I realized after surgery that I wasn't eating as much. I got full a whole lot quicker, and I could only eat like a cup at a time, and it was insane that that's what I could do to eat full. And it was also weird to adjust because I would buy food and prepare food how I would before, where and then I'd like eat a cup and I'd be like,
I don't want to eat anymore.
The amount of food I wasted at first just doing that, it was insane. And I had to learn one how to eat for me and my stomach. But again, it was a lot of weeding out the bad stuff. No soda, that helped a lot. Making sure I was eating protein first, vegetables second, and then there was probably no room for the rice and other stuff. So I'd eat of that what I wanted, and then you also are supposed to wait 30 minutes to drink after you eat. Never in my life was I gonna do that. I'm a drink while I eat type of person, so I'd actually eat less and drink so that I could eat and drink at the same time, and you end up grazing all day. It's insane because you went from having one huge meal at night that was worth like 10,000 calories to just grazing through the day, barely meeting your caloric goal.
Effects after this is done, because having a smaller stomach and not eating um a lot, maybe even in trying to get your nutrient values for the day, were you able to meet that? And are you getting a dietitian to help you get all the nutrients that you're supposed to get to help fuel you as you're losing weight?
So because I went through the television show, I think my process was expedited and I didn't get all the education that other people did. And so for me, it was a lot of learning on the fly, learning um, how to do meal prep, how to cook foods for bariatric surgery that are one good, not on a list of what I call ingredients. We got an ingredient list, which was just like cheese sticks, grilled chicken, rice, and it's like, no, no, let's talk about actual meals and everything else. So for me, the whole weight loss process and after it, it wasn't necessarily a dietitian. Mine, I watched YouTube videos, TikTok. I'd Google weight loss surgery, bariatric meals. That's where I found out about egg roll in a bowl, which is literally what I survived off of for like 3 months after my initial surgery. Because one, it was so good, and I can eat the same thing every day for an eternity. But two, it really helped keep me on track because one, it was so good and I wanted to eat it. That's why I tell people focus on food because I wanted to eat this low calorie, high protein, bulky meal that I could snack on all day and lose weight. Before you throw in the carbs, you throw in the fried chicken and everything else, and you eat a huge bowl at night and you're gaining weight.
What advice would you give to people who were in your position before? The people who are this is if the weight if the show never came into your life, what advice would you give to those people who are in that position? Sorry.
Yeah, so my advice isn't always will be the same, which is love yourself because it wasn't until I actually was proud of myself and allowed myself to be proud of myself and allowed myself to be like, no, no, you're a bad bitch. Look at everything you've overcome. Like, nothing's going to stop you now. I had to love myself at 664 pounds to get to where I am now. I had
Mm,
to love myself and care about myself enough to where I would invest in myself. Because I was so busy doing for everyone else at that point in time because I didn't think I had worth. I didn't think that I needed to do stuff for me until I started again loving myself, being like, you're a bad bitch, you're beautiful, you got this. Can't nobody hold you back. And that's
mm.
where I really started therapy, um, eating healthy, again, the show. And it was all this huge catalyst transitionary period. But loving myself is the best piece of advice I can give to anyone. Because if you don't care about yourself, if you don't love yourself, if you think that you're the bane of your existence, you're never going to lose weight. You're not going to be successful. You're your own best friend. You're with you for the rest of your life. You got to love
Church.
you.
Church. What on those same lines, how about you just tell me, what are you most proud of when it comes to your journey so far?
Honestly and truly, I think the one thing I'm most proud of with my journey is unlearning all the things from my childhood, and also learning about bipolar disorder and how that worked for me. Again, I think my bipolar disorder, and there will be a lot of conflicting opinions about this, I consider it a superpower, but that's how I view a lot of things in my life, in which it kind of gave me this extra boost of confidence. It made me feel like a bad bitch. So even when I was going through all that hell, I was still like, no, no, you're the shit. You got this. Even if I didn't necessarily believe it, I still kind of felt it at that time, and it really helped get me through it all. And so I think mental health is the core component to any type of health, any type of transition, because the brain is what's going to get everything else in check. And so you just got to get that in check first. Like, understanding I had bipolar disorder, how my brain worked, how I operated, and the fact that I went from highs and lows. Since I've been medicated, I haven't had a depressive episode. I also haven't spent a ridiculous amount of money on Amazon for no reason or gone on cleaning binges. Like, I've been more productive in this kind of neutral zone than I was at any other point before this. And so it's just the happiness and peace that I have from that. Get your mental health in order. However you have to, whatever you have to do, that's the first step, I think, for anyone.
I'm really proud of you and everything that you've overcome because this is not easy. It's not easy. The mental health part of it, overcoming homelessness, dealing with abusive childhood in every aspect, whether it's at home or at school, and now having overcome being obese and being overweight and still working your way through it. You are a beast. I will call you that for sure. Now, my final question to every podcast is my favorite. It is, and you kind of started to talk about it earlier, but the question is, what would you say to your younger self? What would you say to young Corey? What advice would you give young Corey as he was battling depression and bipolar disorder and dealing with abusive mom and all the things that you were dealing with? What advice would you give young Corey?
Honestly and truly, I think about this all the time because I always revert back to when I was in that car. And I just want to go back and let myself know that the position you're in isn't your fault, no matter what people tell you, no matter what your family tries to say. The position that you are in right now isn't something that you should have ever been in, that you are worthy of love, um, and that you deserve to have people in your life
Mm.
who love you, who respect you, who care for you, who you can depend on. When I first came homeless, I didn't know who I was going to reach out to and ask for help. I had no clue because I had spent so long isolating myself from everyone. And the only person I reached out to was my Aunt Kristen. And luckily, she took me in because Lord knows where I would be right now without her. Um, and she helped me get into a shelter and everything else. And it's just know that you are worthy of love. Know that one, it's not your fault. And two, even if you fuck up today, get back up tomorrow and try because you're gonna get there. And this is not where your story ends. If anything, this is where it begins.
Wow. Amazing. You're worthy of love. And even if you fall, you can always get back up. This is not where your story ends. Rebuilding is just the beginning. Corey, you are an inspiration, and thank you so much for wanting to share your story with me. I hope that people who are listening to this, who are going through the same, can get inspiration from you. But I also hope that people out there who have people in their lives who are dealing with what you were dealing with can have empathy for those people because of your story. So thank you so much for sharing on this podcast. This is you. You are incredible.
Well, thank you. No, and thank you for having me. It's hard sometimes to sit back and look at yourself and give yourself credit and credence for everything you've overcome. But it's moments like these where I'm just like, okay, you really are a bad bitch. Even though you were a sad bitch for a long time, you were always a bad bitch.
You are a bad bitch. I appreciate you so much. Now go enjoy your Sunday. Happy Sunday. Thank you so much, bro.
Thank you. Same to you. You have a good one.
Don't forget to hit subscribe, like, share it with a friend, all the things. Talk to you guys soon.